if you've ever had a speech that seems to just be sick, somehow the speech is just not well, you can tell. It's like it can't breathe. There's something in it. It just somehow it isn't working. It isn't getting together. It isn't like getting its ox. It's like a person when they suddenly fall down and they can't breathe. They can't be well, and you just know there's something wrong with them. They got something blocking them. Something in them. Their face starts to turn blue. They start to get hurt, and you start to do CPR. If you know it, you can do CPR. Now, CPR is a method in which if somebody falls down, somebody gets sick, their face starts turning blue, there are things that you can do to help them get started again. Especially if somebody has a heart attack. They fall down, boom, do CPR, and then it helps get them going. It helps get the blood flowing. It helps get in there. Brings them back to life. Literally brings them back to life. Well, sometimes you can have a speech that, for whatever reason, just kind of falls down. Doesn't really go anywhere. It's not well. It's clearly not healthy. It just can't stand on its legs. Can't stand. And that's when you need CPR. And CPR is simply an easy way to remember the three basic things that you really want to do to have a good speech. They're simple, powerful, and if you use these techniques, you'll discover you can bring your speech back to life. Quite often what happens with people when they're doing a speech is not that they have a real problem with so much the speech. I mean, technically it's there. They've got something to say. Technically they're getting it out. But it's just not working. And that's probably when the speech needs a little CPR to get it back in. Maybe you've experienced this. For whatever reason, your speech just isn't working. It's not producing. It's not really happening. And you're not quite sure why. And if you ever had that experience, you know that it can be frustrating. You just look at the speech and think, well, it's a perfectly good speech. I mean, all the parts there. It's got a beginning, a middle, and end. What's missing? What's wrong? And that thing that's wrong is it needs CPR. Just like a person who falls down, is non-responsive and trouble breathing. So your speech is falling down. It's having trouble breathing, and it needs this CPR to get it going. And the thing about CPR is that once you start applying it, then all of a sudden you not only develop life in your speech, you also can develop life in you as a speaker. CPR not only rejuvenates your speech, it also rejuvenates you. It brings you back to life. It helps you get a little bit more focused on what this speech is really about. It helps you have a little bit more concern and care. And if you ever experienced that, where you're just suddenly going through a speech or a talk, and after a while it's like, it doesn't matter, whatever, you know, it's not really there. That's probably because your speech needs CPR. And once you do that, you can bring the speech back and really make it pop, really make it work. So you have a whole different way of doing the speech, and it'll have more zing, more pop, more zest. Somehow, it'll be a different way to get on stage for the speech once you add the CPR into it. You'll be stronger, strutting around, more confident, more certain of yourself. And you'll make that connection. You've been trying to make with you've been struggling with it, the speech needed CPR, you give the CPR to it, now you make the connection. Now things start to work. They start to happen. And once you go through this CPR process, C, the P, the R of the process, then you discover the speech is good, and the speech starts affecting your life as well. The powerful thing about CPR, once you learn CPR for your speech, can do some really amazing things. One big challenge a lot of speakers have is what to talk about. And if you ever struggle with this, you know that there are just all these different subjects about what to talk about. In fact, if you go on the internet, you'll see that there are just hundreds of speech topics. You type in the word speech topics or possible topics for a speech. It says all sorts of things you can talk about. In fact, as many things as there are in the world, that's how many things you can talk about. But not all of them are good choices. Not all of them are good choices for you. There are certain things that really will work, and other things that just won't work. And it really comes down to the C in CPR. It's the first step of getting that life back into your speech and getting some life back into you. And the C of CPR is you have to care. You have to care about your subject. It's really important you care about the subject you're talking about. And a lot of speakers do this, and maybe you've done it yourself. They think, well, you know, I want to give a speech somewhere about something and do something. You kind of put something together. It doesn't really matter to you. You just kind of threw it together. Maybe it's something you're doing at work you don't really like. Maybe it's something that you've heard about that's supposed to be a hot topic everyone's talking about, so you figure you ought to talk about it as well. But you aren't interested and you aren't excited about it, and as you talk about it, your interest just kind of flags, the way your energy starts going down. You're always just senses that, you know, hey, this person doesn't care about it. And you know how it is when somebody doesn't care about something? You ever found that you also stop caring about it? You start thinking, well, they don't care about it. Why should I care about it? It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to them. It matters to nobody. So that's the first problem in your speech. You don't care about it. Once you care about your speech, there's a different energy, a different charisma, a different way you have of presenting. Just by caring about it. You may have heard people talk about things like vocal variety and gestures and these sort of things, and they're useful. But you'll discover when you care about something, when you really care about it, the gestures start to happen. The vocal variety starts to happen. The passion starts to come out of your voice because it's something you care about. Something that matters to you. All of a sudden your voice has a different edge, a different tinge, because you care. Have you ever heard somebody talk and you started getting a feeling, you know, that person cares? And did you find that you started caring too? Maybe it was something you never thought about before, never worried about, didn't matter to you, because that person cared so much about it. You started thinking, whoa, they're really going on and on about this. Maybe there's something there. Maybe I should be more aware of this. Maybe there's a problem I'm not aware of. Maybe there's something I should find out here. Right? Have that happen? You care about something? And then that's the power of the C. The power of caring. Because once you start caring, all of a sudden there's a different voice, a different energy to you. Your voice just sounds differently. There are different things you can do to bring out the effectiveness of your voice. Talked about that in some earlier talks. But just the fact you care about it, automatically your voice will do different things. Your volume, your rate, your pitch will automatically change because it's something you care about. Something that really matters to you. So how do you find what you care about? Well, one way to do it, of course, is if you already have a passion, great. If you've got something that you constantly read about, look about, think about, it's always in your mind, that's probably what you should start talking about. You're already doing the research anyway. Doing a lot of research on that subject because you care about it, you're interested in it. Talk about it. You may learn more by talking. Because you'll get some ideas, some thoughts about it. Maybe you'll talk to people afterwards. Your talk's over and say, oh, that's interesting. I was thinking about this too. Oh. And maybe you learn something. You find out something new you didn't know. If you care about it, you want to find out more about it, talking is a great way to do that. So if you care about it naturally, that'll start to happen. So that's caring. And caring is great. Caring, of course, will only get you so far. You can care a lot about something, and the speech still doesn't work. Maybe you've heard these speeches where, they really care about it, but there's something still missing. The thing that's missing is the P of CPR. Caring is great. Caring is a great way to start your speech. Really care what you're saying. There's something else, though, that you need to have. Something else that needs to be there. And if you don't have it, you may have seen speeches that don't have this sort of thing. And even if you don't know what that is, it's all right. Does it sound familiar to you? Where you get the sense, okay, this person cares about it, but I'm not sure what it is. Somehow there's something missing. You know, there's a lot of caring going on, but okay, great, they care about it, but I'm still confused about where this is going, and there's something missing, and that missing thing is the P. The P of CPR. You got the caring, right, but without the P, there's a problem. Once you have the P, then things start to get together. You're like saying, okay, fine, all right, I understand where you're going. And the P is simply your point. Your point. And what happens to a lot of speakers, and maybe you've done this yourself, especially if you're drafting things out, writing things down, you care about something, so you start writing all this stuff about it. And you go all over the place. Oh, I got this and this and this and this. You put all this stuff out there. That's wonderful. But if you say it like that, your audience is going like, oh, there and here and here and here and all over the place. And they're thinking, what is the point? What is the point here? You ever heard a speech like that? You listened to it and you thought, wow, they really care about that, but they have no point. I care about it, just tell me what the point is and maybe we'll agree on that. So caring isn't enough. There has to be some sort of point. So it's good to have a point. Now, some people are saying, okay, great, have a point. Let's have lots of points. Well, the thing about lots of points is almost as bad as having no points. If you have points all over the place, you really care about something, and here are all the points I have on it, then your audience doesn't know quite which way to go. It's like that poem about the roads dividing in the yellow wood and no one knowing which one to go by. And so your audience kind of goes down a random path, but if that path they're going down, that point isn't your main point, then that person has lost you. They completely lost the whole point of your speech. Maybe your audience will have to wander along and find the correct point, but maybe they won't. Instead of saying 2 roads diversion Yellowwood, it's more like 5,000 roads diversion Yellowwood, and I was so confused by it all. You don't want that to happen. So you got to have a point. And to make sure you have a point consistent, think about this. Make sure you have everything in your speech will come back to that point. When in doubt, leave it out. When in doubt, leave it out. If you can't say absolutely, okay, this absolutely goes to that point. This, I'm talking about, everything here is all about supporting that point. If you can't absolutely say that, throw it out. No matter how wonderful it is, how exciting it is, how much you care about it, if it's not relevant to your point, it's got to go. Otherwise, you do the listeners a great disservice. Listeners hear this and say, okay, all right, I think I know where he's going. Whoa! Where did that come from? What are you talking about? Isn't that the opposite of what he just said? Aha! What's that? Now, which one is it? Is it this way or that way? And there's something in the middle too, I think. They go all over the place. They're saying, what's the point? What's the point? The thing about a speech you really care about, if you care about it, it has no point. Most people in the audience, if you have a speech that has no point, they're just going to give up on it. They say, yeah, okay, you know, the guy cares about it. Maybe I should care too. If you ever explain what his point is, maybe I'd care about that. Without a point, why bother? So make sure you point the way. You point the way. That point should be all the way through your speech. And to make sure everything you say is relevant, when in doubt, leave it out. Just leave it out. Okay. Now you care about something and you got a point. You got the C, you got the P. But there's something missing. There's something missing. Even if you care about something, you got a point. Maybe you're telling a great story about the point. Okay, fine. But there's something missing. That's the R. Without the R, you're not going to have the effect you want to have. So once once you get the C and the P, make sure you put in that R. All right, you're getting there. The speech that you thought was dead, lying down, you're giving CP to it. It's starting to get better. There's something missing. You got to give CPR to it. And without the R, somehow the stories you're telling just don't quite work. Yeah, you care about it. Yeah, there's a point. But somehow they just don't really come across the way you wanted to come across, and you know it. Somehow you know it. It feels false. It feels fake. It's just not working. You think, I don't know, this whole thing. Well, why isn't it helping? This isn't working. It's because you're missing the R. Once you get that R, then your stories start to pop. Then your examples start to go. Everything just starts to really come together. Because your R really will bring everything together with the caring and the point. The R is simply to relive. Relive. You've got a point you really care about. Probably it's something that happened to you. Hopefully it's something that happened to you. If it didn't happen to you, you really aren't the best person to talk about it. Okay, you care about something, it's a point, it happened to you, or you know something about it somehow. You've got a story, you've got something going on. Relive the experience that brought you into caring about that point. Relive that experience. What a lot of speakers do, and maybe you've done this, they just kind of go through, okay, I care about it, here's a point, etc. But they don't really fully get into it. Maybe the point is so sensitive, so delicate, that they're afraid of it. They're afraid really to get into it and get emotionally involved with it. They don't want to relive it. It was horrible. They stay away from it. However, if you stay away from it, your audience will stay away from it. And pretty soon it's something you care about. It's got a point, and everybody's kind of avoiding it and saying, yeah, I care about it, it's a point, but I don't really want to get too close to it. And that just doesn't sell audiences. It doesn't get your speech going. But if you relive it, if you embrace it, if you go through that story as if it's happening right then, right there, and you can see in your mind's eye everything happening all over again, then your caring, your point, really come across. Because the audience is going through it too. That does mean if you're going to relive something, make sure it's something that you're comfortable reliving with. That you've far enough away from it, you've had enough things happen, because if you have something really traumatic that happens, and you relive it, and you just break down on stage, well, the audience will certainly feel compassion for you, but it'll probably make it really difficult for you to get your actual point across. So if you're going to relive something, make sure that you're okay with it. Sometimes certain things are so sensitive that you got to put them aside. The death of a loved one, a traumatic event that happened to somebody you know or happened to you. Give it a little time, give it a little distance, and then go back and relive it. And if you can relive it without breaking down, you're okay. But if you break down when you relive it, then that's not going to work. Because going up on stage and every other word is you kind of, I didn't think, you can't talk that way. Sure, it's passionate. Sure, it's authentic. Sure, it's confusing the heck out of people. Is he having a nervous breakdown? Is she having some sort of medical problem up there? What's really going on? And your audience becomes really uncomfortable. Now, it's okay sometimes to make your audience uncomfortable, but if you do it, make your audience uncomfortable deliberately for a point. Not just because you're uncomfortable. So relive the experience. Once you're sure that it's an experience you can relive. Once you get to that point where you say, okay, I get it. Yeah, I care about it as a point, and I'm going to relive that thing. Wow. That's CPR. Everything kind of comes together. You're reliving it. You're right there going through that thing again. The very thing that you cared about, the very thing that brought you to this point. You're reliving that, and that is amazingly effective for your audiences. A boring or a dull, uninteresting speech probably can use some CPR. And CPR first is about caring. You gotta care. You gotta care about what you're talking about, because once you care, there's a whole energy that comes into you. The things like gestures, vocal variety, all that kind of stuff, it all just kind of comes together because you care about it. And people get that. Okay, you care about it. Just so you notice if someone really cares about something, you start kind of being in their corner already. Now, if they don't care about it, you mirror it the same way. You don't care about it? I don't care about it. Doesn't matter to me. But it really matters to you. Mine's the thing is, maybe this is something I should care about. I should be more aware of. I should really be concentrating on. So caring about something automatically puts some energy into it. And then in addition to caring, you have to have a point. Has to be a point. And the point is really what you want to get across the audience. Because if you're getting up there and you really don't have a sense of your clear point is, your audience will kind of wander around and try to figure out, okay, they care, but what the heck are they talking about? And if you've ever been in those speeches where someone clearly cared about something but you couldn't figure out what it was, you know, as a member of the audience, you very quickly checked out. You said, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, they care about it, but I don't know. Should I care about it? Does it really matter to me? Does it not matter? I don't know. You just kind of checked out of the speech and, checked your iPhone or your messages or whatever. But there's a point. And that point's relevant to you. And you say, yeah, that's an important point. I see why you care about it. I care about that point too. That really matters to me. And that's really effective. And to make the point work, just remember, when in doubt, leave it out. You're going through your speech, you're saying, is this really relevant to my point? Yeah, throw it out. So you make sure that point is solid and really makes sense. And then finally, to make the whole thing kind of come together, relive. Relive that experience. Relive the time you started caring about that point. What was it that made you care so much about that point you're talking about? What makes you care so much of standing up and getting that point across the audience? Why does it matter? Why should it matter to them? What's the story behind what happened? And relive that story. Just go through it from the beginning all the way through to the end. Take out the boring parts, keep the interesting parts. Get that story out by reliving that story. Now that means, of course, you're comfortable with the story. If it's something traumatic, something horrible that happened, and you're really not comfortable at all, and you're just kind of on stage, I just got this horrible thing happen. I don't know what to say. That's not a speech. That's a nervous breakdown on stage. You don't want to do that. So make sure there's been enough time so you can get a hold of yourself and talk about things in a normal sort of a way. Crying is all right, but they got to understand what you're crying about and what you're saying. Once you get that across, reliving that story, reliving that experience, going through it again as if it's happening right then, that's powerful. Because when you relive it, you're right there and you can see it. The audience can see it too. You can see it in your mind's eye, and they've got their own mind's eye, seeing their own version of events, the way you describe them. The audience will have their own take on it, but they'll be reliving it along with you, and that puts you together. Speaking is challenging. And the most challenging thing about it is when you're giving a speech or you're looking at a speech, maybe you've done before, and it just isn't coming together and you don't know why. It just seems to lie there. Or it seemed okay and all of a sudden the speech just seems thick, weak, falling over. Well, that's when your speech needs CPR. So make sure you got the CPR. Make sure you care. You got to care about what you're talking about. That'll help pull it together right there. Get a point. And relive that point. Once you start giving CPR to your speech, you'll discover that that speech has a lot of energy in it. It energizes you. It gets you acting different, looking different, talking different. It just transforms you in a whole new way. Quickly you start making an audience connection and Your whole life starts to open up as the message of that speech starts coming into your life, coming into your world. And then you take that energy and you put it back in the audience. So next time you've got a speech and it seems to be sick and dying, remember, give it some CPR.